people together in a room and talk about swimming. Great opportunity for us as well to talk about physiology and swimming. So thank you all for being here. 21 people have done the quiz in this group, 70 people in total. So I hope you've enjoyed that. And top score still is 31, so if someone else wants to give it a go, 32 is the maximum score. This is one slide with a lot of words, and it's the only slide with a lot of words, right? So just want to talk through what we're actually going to talk about today. So this workshop, we'll spend a little bit of time talking about human physiology. And some of you have seen some of that content before, but I thought it was important to go through it again, just to explain what you're actually doing when you're training someone. People are changing, that's the purpose of training. So what actually happens, examples of what happens when you change. So we'll have some examples of adaptations through training, and then we'll also talk about energy systems and why is it important to actually know about energy systems. Well, because when you're prescribing train sets, which you do every day, you actually target certain energy systems. So it's important to know some of the backgrounds, like what you're actually achieving with that set. Then a lot of time on practical, so training set examples. What do they do on a physiological level? And then also how do you actually, so you prescribe a session, then how do you actually evaluate that session? Was it good, bad, physiological level, performance level? Where do you set your standard as a coach? And then the workshop will break into 6 groups, and each group will have a certain topic, and they have to make some sets. And then one of the coaches with a little bit less experience will have to explain the set to the whole group, and we'll just comment on it. And then we'll go through some training week snapshots from Olympic and World Championships medalists. And we'll talk a little bit about periodization and on monitoring variables, and we'll have a little chat on warm-ups and recovery. Right, from the quiz, the first question. What is the main purpose of training for swimmers? Which color is correct? What is the main purpose of training? Do you want to have like very high VO2 max? Do you want to build muscle mass? Do you want to make them tired because that's where you make people better because you make them tired? Or is it to actually induce functional adaptations for swimming? What is it? Green one. So I use this as an example. If you have a horse race, or you have a swimming race. So you have a swimming race, who do you put your money on? So you have in the middle someone that is 11 years old, right? And does a swimming race 50 all the way to 1500. Or you have a runner that has a huge VO2 max in running. Or you have someone that's really like massive muscles. Who would you put your money on here? So, which one? I was going to put my face on that one, but well, I would put my money on the middle one. So, just to make a statement here, like we're going to talk about physiology, but in the end, we talk about swimming physiology, and technique is super important, right? So, any adaptations that we make, like we build, we want to do that in good technique. Yeah. So, especially when you're training junior swimmers, it's difficult to change later on, because that's on a physiological level, it's neuromuscular. So those patterns, once you have established those by routine, it's very difficult to change later on. So coaching junior swimmers, yes, we have to put them through work, but technique is very, very important. So anything we talk about today, think about technique as well. Right, yeah?
Sorry, this is just from a kayaking perspective. The one thing we have found is if they do have a huge VO2, it can offset for some of that poorer technique, whereas if you don't have as big a motor, then technically they've got to be...
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Ideally you have someone that has both good technique and great motor. Yeah. All right, so just some examples, and some of you have seen this before, some of you haven't. Majority hasn't, that's why I still put it in, because majority hasn't. Part of the quiz, what is this picture of? Someone that hasn't seen it before, what is this picture of?
Capillaries.
Capillaries. Very good. Question to you: What do capillaries do?
Deliver oxygen to muscle cell and take away the metabolites as well.
Yeah, great. Yeah, good. Can we create more?
Yeah, you can increase density.
Yeah. So this is just an example of adaptation. So you see capillaries, they go around to muscle cells, and so they bring oxygen to muscle cells, take away waste products. And it's a difficult structure. It's not something that I build in a day. I'll train today and tomorrow I have new capillaries, right? It's the same as like, I want to build this building, you know, I want to build a bridge. It takes a long time. And what do you need to actually build a new bridge, for example? What do you need? So stimulus is one. Second, what do you need to build?
Equipment.
Sorry?
Equipment.
Equipment, yeah. Well, one big thing that you need is building blocks. Right? Building blocks is nutrition. So if you don't have building blocks, you're not going to build. Right? So that's one of the things that's important for adaptation. You have to have appropriate nutrition. So this is just an example. A is someone that, like me for example, not very well trained, but I go through a training process, and then you can actually see you're creating more capillaries around the muscle cells. Right. Quiz. What is needed to achieve positive adaptation? Yeah, all of them. You can't achieve adaptation with one of them. You actually need all of them. If I don't stress my body, there's no change. There's no. Why would I change? Because you need stress. You need training stress to actually change, because that's when your body thinks, this is hard. I have to do something about this, right? And not just once, but regularly. Yeah. Also, I need that stress, but where recovery happens is in the rest. And then also, I need nutrition, those building blocks, to actually make sure that can happen. Right. What is this a picture of? Just one more example. Mitochondria. What do they do? Not a physiologist. From Queensland. What do mitochondria do? Hey? So in simple words, they're the power generators, so that they deliver energy. But one of those things, very important for VO2 max, for example. VO2 max is a sum of so many variables. This is one of them. And you can actually create more, you can make them bigger, you can make them more functional, so that has an effect on your VO2 max. Yeah. Right. An important slide, and it's not that it's like 100% like scientifically perfect, but it just shows. There's no pointer. We start here, so I'm me, start here. I start with this mitochondrial content in my muscles, right? I train for a few weeks consistently, not just once a week, but actually consistently, and I stress my systems, my energy systems. So there's an impulse for making more. In 5 weeks' time, in this example graph, my mitochondrial content or function has actually doubled, right? But after 5 weeks, I take a break over Christmas, and I decide, like, look, I'm going to sit down on my couch and I'm going to play PlayStation all week, and I'm going to have beers and lots of food because it's Christmas. And then in 1 week, because if you stress something, it gets better, but if you stop that stress, it reverts to what it was, right? So in 1 week, I actually lost half of what I've done over 5 weeks, right? If I kept myself active, it would have been a different story, but passive rest, lying down, doing nothing, that reverted. And then when I want to go back to that bigger level, I need about 4 weeks to actually start to be at the same level again. So something like this, capillaries, mitochondria, it takes years to maximize it. Not just a few weeks. It takes a long time to actually maximize on a muscle level those capacities. Right. Big biceps. Picture on the right. What happened to this guy? Normal? What's that?
Didn't do legs.
Exactly. If I like do bicep curls every day, I have massive biceps, but nothing else will change because I'm not doing anything else, right? So this guy obviously forgot to do his homework. So take that back to the pool. If you don't train underwater kicking, well, it's probably not it's like on a technical level, for example, well, it's not probably not going to improve unless the swimmer themselves take it on. So if you work on something, there's a reason for improvement. If you don't work on something, why would it improve? So you have to think, what do I want to achieve, and how to actually make sure that that happens in my training on a regular basis, right? Skill level as well. Many people start working on dives like a month before the competition, but it's a process that takes a longer time. You have to practice it for it to be completely good. Right. Some more examples just on the cardiovascular level. There's many, so you can actually increase your plasma volume, stronger heart. So with one beat, you actually push more blood out. And I really like this graph as an understanding of cardiovascular stress. So you monitor heart rate a lot. Well, so this is what happens in rest. Say a normal person like me, I have 5 liters of blood in my body. If I actually train, especially in the heat, I can actually increase that a little bit. But anyway, I start with 5 liters per minute. And my heart pumps that blood around, right? And in 1 minute, I send all that blood around. So it starts on my heart, it goes all the way around, and it comes back to my heart. So some of that goes to your digestive system, some back to your heart, to your kidneys, to your bones, to your brains, to your skin, to your muscles. When you're sitting here in rest, about 15 to 20% of that 5 liters passes through your muscles, right? Now when you do heavy exercise, look how much blood you're pumping out per minute. So not 5, but 25, 5 times as much. So if I create more blood volume, for example, I can push out much more. So what happens when you actually push more blood to your muscles? What happens? What is the benefit of that?
You have more oxygen and you remove faster all the
Exactly.
toxin and all the...
Exactly, yeah. So all these adaptations occur when you continuously train someone, make someone better. And by the way, if you just had a meal, for example, just before exercise, there's not that much blood going to your digestive system. There's a lot going to your muscles, just take in mind. So 80 to 85% of that 25 liters will go to your working muscles. Important one, muscle glycogen. I hear people before the session talk about lactates. What is glycogen? What is that? Sugar? I hear someone say sugar. What is glycogen? Fuel? Yeah. Storage form of what kind of food is it a storage form of? Carbohydrates. Can you swim fast without muscle glycogen? Anyone, distance swimmer, sprinter, can you swim fast without muscle glycogen? You can't. So important one to across the board, like when we talk about glycogen, glycolysis, lactate production, it has to be there because in the end, if it's not there, you're not going to swim fast. And there's reasons why some people will be depleted. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. But this is a starting point. This is a study, so this is a starting point here. And this first line is from someone that hasn't trained, so me, right? I'm doing 90 minutes of exercise, and I start with that muscular glycogen content. It drops quite rapidly, right? And after those 90 minutes, I don't have much anymore at all, right? Someone actually only trained for 5 days, consistent days. Well, starts a little bit higher already, so a little bit more glycogen content in muscles. Decline is still very steady, ends up with more than double of what I end up with. Well, that's actually me versus me. It's me training 5 days. Say I did 31 days of endurance training. Well, my muscular glycogen content is much higher, so I start with much of those capacities. I start much higher, and also when I do exercise, I'm much more economical. So that rate of decrease of depleting your glycogen is much less than when you're not training. Right, so that's also an adaptation to actually get high glycogen stores, which is really important for fast swimming. And we'll talk about training sets, what that means when you see people fall off, drop off. So they do a few 50s and then they're gone, while other people actually can maintain. So we'll talk about that later. Some pictures of heroes in swimming. You know, they're all actually quite strong in general, and they're very good technique, just very fast swimmers, right? There's outliers, and I really like this one. I really like this story. Do you know the story? So who's this girl in the middle?
So I think you can see
Obviously Emma McNeil. So McNeil won World Championships, right? The year before she was a 58.7, I think. And I think she won in a 55.8. Almost 3 seconds in 1 year. And the story is, I don't know if it's true, but the story is the year before she was a little bit chubby. She comes into a program in Canada, no, I don't want that swimmer. Go somewhere else, world champion. 3 seconds faster. So sometimes like we do look at size, you know, but it's skill as well. Diacito came to train with Griffith before, and gosh, his skill. He just swims away from everyone in the water, right? This girl just swam away from both those girls, top class performers underwater from the dirt. She's not that tall, but she did it. Right, 3 second improvement, and also lost a bit of weight, so became leaner, and there you go. That's the outcome. So I don't know what happened in that year, but it must have been a very targeted approach to actually improve something in her swimming. Right. I want to show those pictures as well. So that's the 2 Olympic champions in the Rio from open water, both Dutch, and so they won the 2-hour event, but still they're quite fast, right? Like if you look at 200 and 400 meter PBs, they're still quite fast. So even in those races, you actually need to be quite fast. Right, energy systems. Maybe before I go to the next slide, can someone name me 3 energy systems? Oxidative is what? Aerobic? Aerobic, oxidative, the same. Everything, yeah. ATP is everything, that's energy. Yeah, CP system, phosphorin system. 2. Which one's the third one? Glycolytic. Yeah, okay, glycolytic. Yeah, aerobic and anaerobic glycolysis, but we're not going to go into that. So which one is it? Out of those? Which color? Yeah, so the one on the left, the red. What is lactate production? What is that? Okay.
Aerobic capacity.
It's actually the same as glycolytic. Yeah. So lactate production is actually glycolytic. What is lactate tolerance? We'll talk about it later on, but lactate tolerance is actually more aerobic than it is, but we'll talk about it later on. Lactate removal, let's not talk about that. Aerobic capacity, what is that? Aerobic capacity. When you look at those 3, what does aerobic capacity refer to? Yeah, so the strength of that oxidative system. Anaerobic capacity, the strength of that glycolytic system. And speed in the end, that's phosphorin. So going really fast, up to like 6 seconds, sorry. That's predominantly that CP phosphorin system. Forget about the other one. Right, this one. Question, yes or no? Yes. When I start exercise, high intensity exercise, yes or no? Yes. Good. So this is an example of a model from Germany. This is actually German here. German students here from Bonn University. This is a model from Germany, and so this is 200 meter freestyler, 144, and this is a timeline, start to the end, how the energy systems work together. So 100%. So when you start exercise, the predominant is this one. First few seconds is phosphorin, but look, they work together, right? So the aerobic starts already as well. This is aerobic. The longer it goes, the more aerobic it becomes. So the longer it goes, more aerobic it becomes. Passive rest, if it becomes shorter, more aerobic it becomes. Talk about later. Glycolytic as well. So the longer it goes, the less glycolytic. Okay, because you get fatigue in that area. Right. Same thing, so just systems working together, so it's phosphates in anaerobic glycolysis and aerobic energy. So the longer it becomes, the more the aerobic system is really important. Right. also from Germany. This is a model for the events. So 50 feet freestyle all the way to the 1500s. And it shows like how much of each contributions per event. So which ones are very oxidative in general? Which events? Hey? Sorry? 815, what about the hundreds?
No, it's 100 up.
It's actually 100 up, like even 100, like it's actually, when you look at the schedule later on, also assume you have to back up from race to race to race. So your aerobic system is really important to recover as well. So from the 100 up, the 50 is a bit of an outlier because that's a very anaerobic event. So 50-meter freestyle training is actually quite different from anything else, unless you're technically very good. Two big messages in this graph. What are they? Take a little bit of time. So this one is how much energy you expend, and here what the intensity of the exercise is. And here are the sources of energy that you use. So there's two big messages in this graph, and it's a simple graph. So that's what I like sometimes, keep things simple. And this one is what I personally use quite a bit to understand energy and what you're doing with exercise. The two big messages. What's the first one? What do you mean with glycogen?
You need a lot of it to.
Sorry?
You need a lot of it to go at a higher VO2 max.
Yeah, okay. I'll take that one. Yeah. So the faster you go, the more glycolysis you need, right? So if you're fast swimming, it needs glycolysis, right? Yep, that's the first message. Okay, second message, what is it? It's a simple one, but... And by the way, so if you're swimming very slowly, you actually don't dig into those glycogen stores, right? Yeah, the second message? It's a simple one, but it's an important one.
The more intense the exercise, the more energy you use.
Yes. So if you swim slowly, you actually don't spend that much energy. The faster you swim for the same duration, you're actually going to spend a lot more energy. Right? So thinking about nutrition, for example, and we have Greg here as well. So you're going to spend much more energy when you increase the intensity. Right. This was a tricky question. We just talked about it before. When the rest between 50-meter high intensity repetition is shortened, what happens? Red or blue?
Red.
Everyone agrees with red? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Just to show you an example, so a practical example. Say we have 650s faster than 200 pace on 90 seconds, right? And this is the first 50, and I actually drew it. This is, yeah, so 50, you have 1 minute rest, so say like less than 30 seconds, 1 minute rest, 30 seconds, 50, so yeah, that's a timeline. So say this is like the total energy contribution. The first one, how aerobic, how anaerobic. Let's start with the first one. With a senior swimmer. A senior swimmer. High anaerobic. Yeah. So say we start here, right? So it's 50, say we start here. So let's say, for example, this is the anaerobic components, this is the aerobic component. Could be a little bit more, so say that, right? Why do I draw it like that and not flat?
Towels off.
So further you go, yeah, okay. Right, say we have a very fit swimmer, Recovery, passive rest. Second one. Right? Recovery, passive rest. fast swimming, fast swimming, fast swimming, fast swimming, very fit swimming, right? Say we reduce that passive rest and we do 6 times 50 fast and turn pace on, say, 50 seconds. What happens? Becomes more aerobic because, like, look, if you go here, it's less recovered, right? Yeah, that's one. Second, what happens if you don't have a very fit swimmer? Hey, sorry.
They're using more of the anaerobic straight up. So they
dig in more to
yeah,
the
they dig
capacities.
in. The fitter swimmers probably there's more availability, but they're not having to use as much travel at that speed.
Did you see those lines before? Like when you start exercise, depletion, like you dig into those stores, like that, and also recovery, not as fast, right? Yeah. So that's one. What's the difference between general difference, like, and that's where I really like that we have diversity in this group. Difference between training junior swimmers and senior swimmers in this regard. What happens with the majority of junior swimmers there?
Proportionally less anaerobic contribution.
Yes. And there's always the individual variation, right? Like, for example, if I would think of a Kate Campbell, probably early developed, probably very anaerobic from I don't know, 12 years, 30 years old, I don't know. But generally, so if you only start that, like, sometimes I've observed coaches, for example, junior swimmers do 1050s on 3 minutes, increase the anaerobic capacity. And in the end, like, it's probably a little bit too much rest for those guys, right? So it's probably better to make that rest interval for junior swimmers shorter, so it becomes more aerobic because they don't have those developed. Any comments from the Chris, Grant, and Vince, Janelle? Any comments? Junior swimmers? Yeah. So it's a bit different. Like I hear lots of coaches talk about, we have to increase that anaerobic capacity. In the end, we looked at how important the aerobic capacity is, right? And also the technique, and also there are differences in the underlying physiology because they still have to develop in the end, right? And then if you have 100, obviously more aerobic. This is an example of a 200-meter butterfly swimmer, and where we measured lactate. And so we can start talking about lactate now. What actually does that mean? So look at performance times, very consistent, right? On 2 minutes. Oh, sorry. I'll actually use it again.
We just can't see half the.
Yeah, no, I'll use it again, actually. Look, go back to that first one. I go back to this one, because generally what happens is that second one becomes a little bit less. So generally what happens is the longer the set becomes, like it becomes less and less anaerobic, right? But what happens if you measure lactate after that first one, a blood lactate, so you take a sample from the ear. What measurement do we get? Like, look, this is very, like, say this is very anaerobic. What measurement do we get?
Pretty high.
Sorry?
Pretty high.
Pretty high? All right. Depends on the athlete. Do you think you can measure like a 15, say, from a 150 max?
Some people, yeah, would be out there like that.
That's very, very high. So generally, for example, let's say Emma McKeon, for example. Yeah, so what does that mean though? Because, like, look, we have 2 millimole, for example. Oh, millimole, sorry. Millimole. This is 150, just 150, right? Yeah. So say we have 3, there's, for example, 6 millimole. Say, for example, here, it's 12. And here we wait, and it's, for example, 18, for example. Which one is the most anaerobic out of the 6?
Number 1.
Number 1. So why do we measure like a 2 and there's an 18 at the end, where the first one is more? Exactly. So what actually is a blood lactate? What is that when we measure one? What do we refer to on a muscular level? What's that, sorry?
Blood lactate, concentration of lactate in your blood.
Yeah, but why do we measure blood lactate? What actually are we looking at here?
Now recovery.
Recovery?
Energy production.
Sorry?
Is it proportional to energy production? That's what you measure in sprinters.
But what is a blood lactate?
A measure of how anaerobically they've worked and the energy they've been able to produce.
So when you measure blood lactate, you actually look at the rate of glycolysis, right? Lactate production on muscle level, right? But what you measure is the sum of how much you produce on muscle level and how much actually gets cleared on the way. So just not in the muscle cell as well, but between muscles, in the gut, in heart cells, in liver. There's a lot of, so the measurement that you take is always a sum of what happened on a muscular level as well as how much got cleared, right? So just to put that in perspective, you're not exactly measuring what's happening on a muscular level, which is what you're trying to do, right? Which is what you're trying to do, but it's not an exact representation. This is the highest glycolytic one, that's the lowest one, because that variable is because it's accumulation. Like here we don't take a peak lactate, right? We don't wait because there's not enough time to take a peak lactate. So accumulation. What happens if you have someone and they just can't swim faster than 200 pace? Like they're trying to, but they can't swim faster. So what is a possibility there? A possibility. Yeah. So, for example, you have a trained senior swimmer that usually does this, but there's no glycogen, for example. Well, say the first one is that, can't swim fast. Lactate, 1, 2, it's not there. So, yeah.
So in theory, what you're saying is that, let's say we have the same swimmer,
Yeah.
you do the set in once a month, but he's having a different diet.
So for example, if that happens and you actually prepare, like you have a main set and swimming slow and there's a low lactate,
Yeah.
what did you have for food before? I
Yeah.
just started this high fat diet.
Yeah.
You know, oh, okay. You know, that's probably a reason why you couldn't swim fast, right? So, but anyway, like, it's still, like, it can be an important variable, right? But it's still taking a blood measurement. So I think there's a lot of variables that you can look at the swimming, and for junior swimmers, generally I'll be one that says like, look, you know, stay away from it because there's other variables that you can focus on. That's my personal insights there, because if they can swim fast, it's there. If they can swim fast, it's there. They can't swim fast, well, it's not there. Could be a muscular reason, could be a neuromuscular reason, could be energy availability reason. Don't know. So that's where sometimes it could be good to actually assess. Yeah.
Could it also be, say an older swimmer, that they've just sort of done a hell of a lot of miles and that they've actually trained out to speed?
Well, that depends where the fatigue comes from. So if you do a lot of miles, you also get that neuromuscular and muscular fatigue, and then you just can't go anymore because your muscle is just fatigued. The nervous system is fatigued. So then generally you can get like low heart rates, for example. So swimmers that are very fatigued neuromuscularly, they can't get their heart rate up. Or when they swim, for example, you ask them to swim on 15 and their heart rate is either too high or they just can't get there. And the max heart rate they can achieve is 120. That's just a sign of fatigue.
So Tom, if you did a lab test for maximum lactate, what lab test would you do?
I wouldn't do a lab test for maximum.
You wouldn't do one?
lactate.
So like a Wingate test wouldn't be, like they wouldn't, like you wouldn't do that as a physiologist, or?
Actually, if you ask about cycling, there's a physiologist here in the room that works with top cyclists. So, Eric, you can answer this one.
I mean, what's it going to tell you?
Well, I wouldn't say I'd do it. I just remember back at university they did a Wingate test for 30 seconds, and that was a peak, like how they determine peak lactate.
Yeah.
that was a while ago. So, what would you do if you had to get the highest lactate for a sprint cyclist? Like, what test would you run for duration?
Obviously, not 30 second all without effort.
Yeah.
It would be highly anaerobic if you get a high lactate on it. But you know that it's going to be highly anaerobic without measuring that lactate.
Yeah.
And I guess the total lactate producing capacity probably doesn't tell you much more than what the actual power output does. So like a BMX athlete, they can do over 2,000 watts and then put their head in the bucket at the end of it. They've got pretty anaerobic. I think I've done probably 2 lactates in the last couple of years with BMX because I just know they're always high.
50 max.
Yeah.
How fast do they go? All right, next. So just a general question. All of these food sources are very important, right? All of these, like protein and building blocks, you need it. Veggies, minerals, vitamins, very important. Which one's more generally, like more important proportionally for high intensity exercise? Yeah, so that glycolysis. Right, I just want to show this schedule of Cameron because that was one of the best weeks that I've seen for me in my career. And I just want to show it to you because in the end, it's not just one race. Like everyone talks about a 47.0, right? Amazing race, but it's just backing up, right? Like so, the first day, 23.5 and fly, then 3 freestyle, so heats, semifinals, final 1:45.6. 48.7, 48.0, 47.0, then the 53 up to a 21.4. So in the end, when you have athletes, you know, you train them for a whole schedule. You don't just train them for one race. So the ability to back up from one race to another is really important. And if you look at the work that happened before that, there's a lot of backing up where they showed that actually that was possible. So train set examples. Here we go back to the quiz. What is an example of an aerobic workout? So you really want to stimulate that oxidative aerobic system. Which one? I have to look at it myself now. Everyone agrees with the green? Yeah. So all are actually like examples of aerobic workouts. Right, so the previous example, this example was 30 times 100 on 120, so not much rest, and around 7 out of 10 effort, right? So people would call it, like, for example, threshold effort. In the end, what happens then if you ask the same set, so 30 100s, but you have to swim faster and you give more rest? What happens? So say someone holds 104s, 105s on 120, and now you're asking them to swim 60 seconds on 140 for 30 of them. What happens? Who says no difference? More anaerobic? More aerobic? Yeah, so energy systems work together. So it's a higher stress on both the oxidative and glycolytic system. What is a clear anaerobic workout? So we try to stimulate, really focus on that rate of glycolysis. Anaerobic. Which one is it? Yeah, green, very good. So maybe when you see max, it's anaerobic, but in the end, it's kilometer set. It's kilometer set, so it actually becomes aerobic, which is a very good set, right? But it's just like if you did want to stimulate that anaerobic system, then it's not an anaerobic set. So what then is a clear example of stimulus of that anaerobic glycolysis? There's one in here. Which one is it?
Gold.
Which one?
The gold one.
Gold one? Do people agree? Yeah, so we actually have that example there, but with a lot of rests. So that passive rest, you know, makes it possible to actually stimulate that anaerobic glycolysis. If you had 12 50s and every second fast, so say one very fast, one max, one easy, one max, one easy, one max, one easy, well that, it's not passive, the active recovery in between actually makes it more aerobic because you have less passive rest. What's a clear focus on explosive speed, triggering predominantly the phosphorylated system? Yeah, yellow, So that's one where skill is really important, right? Explosive, get off the blocks, and skill, very, very important. Right? Before we start the workshop, I wanted to use another analogy. I'm ashamed that Wally is not here because he tells it much better than I do. But he once gave the analogy that he talked to the athletes and said, imagine that there's a judge sitting there, and you have to prove whether you're guilty or, well, that you're innocent, right? So you have to present your evidence. So present your evidence, and then the judge is going to decide you're guilty, you have to go to jail, or you're not guilty, you're innocent. Imagine now that the judge is the scoreboard, right? That's a time. If you have lots of evidence to show in training that you're going to go that time, it's probably going to happen. But if you have empty pages, if you're not consistent, you're probably not going to get that time. So that's like one of his philosophies, I guess, to actually regularly look at performances and assess like how good is the swimmer going to be. So empty pages, no consistency, is probably not going to happen, and it's definitely not going to happen backing up from one race to another. Right. Workshop. Do people need a little break before, or should they go into it? Trudy has made 6 different groups, and with a mix of experience. So very experienced coaches, some less experienced coaches, and also sports scientists in the same group. And then we're going to find like a spot somewhere, and just wherever you want to go, there's a meeting room there. I think
it's open. If there's no one in it, we can go. So yeah.
Yeah. So you can you go outside if you want to. You can go to that meeting room. You can go stay here. You can take a table. And the goal is to write 4 sets, and I'm going to give you the particular athletes in the next slide. But write 4 main sets. 4 main sets. One that is an aerobic stimulus. One that is a high stress on both the aerobic and anaerobic systems. Then one that focuses on that anaerobic glycogen stimulus. And then one that has 3 subsets. 1, 2, 3 with recovery in between. And where you try to actually get a grasp on, you have some athletes that perform really well in the first one and not so well in the last one. You have people that actually are much better in the last one. To get a grasp on why that could happen and in terms of what that means for warming up in between. So 4 sets. One is the aerobic stimulus, that second one high stress on both systems, then one is the anaerobic set, and then one where you have 3 race-specific subsets for a particular athlete, and I'll give you the athlete. And then one coach has to present one of the sets, and a coach that doesn't have that much experience from the group, so you just decide who that's going to be. And you have to present it very clearly to the whole group, right? And what to share is, okay, why this set, how often would I do this work, when would I do this set, what actually do I look at? Do I look at heart rate? Do I look at technique? What do I look at in this set? How do I evaluate this session from a physiological and performance perspective? Any considerations in nutrition, water preparation, and also share some differences in training with junior swimmers, because all the examples will be for top athletes. These are the groups. Group 1 for a female. Can you please not have, for example, Vince? Wouldn't want you on that breaststroke group. One, like Vince on another group. 3, breaststroke. Yeah.
That's what I gave Vince group 4.
So Chris also not on butterfly, for example. Like just not the coach that actually works with those athletes, so they're going to mix.
Discrimination is
Yeah. Well, not the 800 piece either. 4 AM, 1 and 5, 1 and 5, 1 and 5, 4 AM. Anyway, so group one for female butterfly swimmer.
I can give you some examples.
For which one?
I can give you examples.
Yes, exactly afterwards. That would be awesome. So group 1 for a female 100 butterfly swimmer targeting a 56.5. So how do you swim that 56.5? It's up to you to discuss. Group 2 for a male 200 freestyle swimmer targeting 144.5. Female 200 butterfly swimmer 2045. 200 breaststroke swimmer 2070. And then this is female swimmer, and then group 6 for a female 400 IM swimmer, targeting 430.0. Right? So you have those groups, and then what you have to do is this one. Right? So how much time do you need? Like half an hour? So it's 10:45 now, and the session was
Like a race specific.
very specific subsets.
So thank you, Chris, first of all, for sharing everything, whatever we did, and this Kyle over there, thank you. So these are the 3 sets. We started with, we're looking a lot of working with the speed charts, the ones that we have from the QAS and Swimming Australia, and we're doing a suit up efforts. So we start with 20, 25, and the 35. We just swim through the 100 on 2:30. Okay, so for the 20, we're looking for, following the speed chart, 9:35, 12:14 for the 25, and for the 35, 17:0. Okay, so definitely looking for hitting that time, right stroke rate that we have from the race analysis, and probably also stroke count. And then we go, there is a 400, 3 to 400 swim off in between each set. We're doing 350, start from the mid pool, looking for the time of the turns. Okay, so we're timing 5 in and 10 out. Looking for the rating and skill time, then again we are from the racing speed chart or race analysis. Again, this is suit up, 400 meter swim off, and then we're doing 350s, push, back end speed of the 100. So the back end speed in theory should be, I forgot to write it down, was 30.0. We're looking for a time that will be 29.0, taking off the turn. Okay, and specific stroke count, again coming from the race analysis. Specific stroke rate, and there is a reactivation in between the set, 2:15 push, and swimming to the 50. Okay, that was it. I think. Yeah. No question.
I have a few. What does everyone think?
Ask the blind.
Very good.
Okay, well, I just want to go through it a little bit more. Any comments? No comments? So the first part is 2 times, it's 20, so it's a dive, 20 dive,
Yeah.
25 dive, 35 dive. Alright. Alright. There's also a few considerations I have to share. When are you doing this kind of work?
Yeah.
When are you doing that in the season? Like all the time, the whole year? Or?
Well, you can play with it, I reckon, because at the end of the day, you're looking for something that it's a specific pace. So obviously, maybe not really early in the season, okay, but definitely starting to working on stroke rate, specific stroke count, and especially the turns work. I will do it probably a lot all the year round. Yeah.
What do people think of the variables? So time, stroke rates. What do you reckon? Stroke rates. This one.
How do you mean?
Well, I think I like it that you have it there. For the reason that many times when you give times to swimmers, they swim max, right? So in the end, like when you put it down to like you want to go that easy speed,
Yeah.
not max. So I like that. Yeah.
Is that the most important part in that set, to have the rate? Because they've got to get the first part right if they're going to finish the rest of the race.
Yeah, so that's where I think, but you know, there's different roads to Rome, right? It's like when you have a whole season, the time to work on skill is in the beginning of the season, right? So you have that work all year through, you know, dives and fast swimming. But like the first time in the season, you really look at skill. Like if you need to change something, it's now time to change. If they dive with hands open, for example, or if the water kicking is no good, the streamline, like that's time to work on it and then fix it, and then later on, it's just like it's a you know, like just a natural process to do that. But I think stroke rate is for the swimmers to understand to swim certain times, but not swimming those times, but actually swimming it easy. Yeah, so I think that's really good.
Yeah, but if we're working, sorry.
Is it 100 pace though? So that's prescribed.
Yeah, so if we're working with specific race pace or specific race skills, that's what you meant to do all year round.
That's right. So I think it's very
Yeah. Okay.
I think,
Even in the, it should be, I didn't write it down because maybe it was probably obvious. The breathing partner is breathing every second strokes, 2 strokes, 1 strokes, 2 strokes, 1 strokes. has to simulate exactly what the person, what this girl is doing during the race. In the first 50 you're breathing every second, the second on the way back you're breathing every stroke. It has to be the same.
Grant? What do you think?
Yeah, lots of thoughts. I like what Tom said about the stroke rate. So I didn't mind the idea of having the speed charts as a little bit of a guide personally, but if they're fatigued or they're in a different part of the season or they're super fresh, maybe they can go faster than race pace with their stroke rate. Maybe, especially if they're suited, they could go quicker across short distances there. So I like the focus on the stroke rate more than the speed chart. Speed chart's easy to manage because you can get 20 kids and say, here's how fast you're going to go. But if we get a kid going 12.9, ripping and tearing, we'd be training. So that's why I like and it's hard to get everybody's stroke rates there, but for me, that's key that they're swimming. Even, I mean, specific, I like the way you said, specific to the breath time, your race breathing pattern.
You told me that last year.
Yes, oh good. But specific to their racing legs and as close as you can get. So that's why I think the stroke rate probably the most important thing in there.
One consideration for me, and I'll explain why I think this is soft, 29.0, even if you want to come back in a 30.0, 1 second faster hands to feet. In training, like I've seen much training over the years, and it's very, very difficult to achieve, if you look at the race-specific charts, that first 50. That first 50 to go that time, yeah, it's very difficult to achieve. And generally swimmers achieve that in a race, but not very often in training. If they do, generally they're overrating or it's swimming maximally. This one, if you look at Emma McKeon, that's no problem. 29.0 suited. And then when you think about it from a physiological perspective, well, that's the back. First you have to make that easy in the end, and you have to be able to come back from it.
And 29 has to be from frame speed though. So 350 is pushed on 29. Most girls.
No, this is back end speed.
That's back end speed.
Yeah, back end speed. But it's got to be back end speed once you produce front end speed.
Yeah. So that on 130, I think is a bit soft, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I wouldn't be limiting to 29 point. I'd be saying, here's your stroke rate. Here's how fast can you go.
The more length you create at stroke rate, the faster you go.
And because of the flow, I'd throw a stroke count in there as well, just to give a bit of an eye on that. But stroke rate for me
I think 28s are good, but actually 27s are world class.
So instead of going, say, 350s, could go 360s, swim 10 in and then go to back end?
Sorry?
Instead of going 350s, go 360s, so start 10 minutes out, swim in, and then hit the time.
Yeah, so that's the end, It makes it hard. Yeah, so I like it that when you actually already took a second off, that's good, but in the end you have to be able to do this in fatigue. So you could actually have this, for example, 3 100s, and off that you do that because you create that fatigue with your set, and then you actually have to push that not just by itself with lots of rest, but you have to push that in fatigue. Yeah.
I think Tom, the other, like what you're saying there too, is going, always say you want to give them the upper limit but don't limit them. So if you're going, for whatever swimmer it is, say you might go 28.5 or better, but they've got to be holding that rate. You don't want them going better, but like Max swimming with a 56 rate, or 58 rate. So just give them the upper limit, but they've got to, if they can go better, but don't cap them in what they're doing. If they're holding the rate.
When doing 100 metre back end speed, depending on the athlete, when we're talking about the prime, as you were just saying, into pushing, does it change on the athlete whether it's an anaerobic prime or an aerobic, or getting to that fatigue, say whether it's anaerobic fatigue or aerobic fatigue, or would you say most 100 metre back end would be anaerobic fatigue?
Yeah, it depends how specific you want to make it. In the end, this is quite anaerobic because you have a lot of rest. And it comes after a substantial recovery. So if you want to make it specific, then you do that work from preload.
Yeah.
But like to work at that, for example, beginning of the season, and then like put more emphasis on that preload later on in the season. So different philosophies. One thing that I like with subsets is that you get to learn a lot from your athletes. I think in the end those sets it's not a very big set, is it? It's actually not that much. How much is it at 100 page?
Should be 300-400.
So
we were looking for 3 to 400 meters at
actually
base.
That's right. That's quite a bit. Yeah. But you have people, for example, when you write 3 subsets, they don't do they pace themselves the first one because they're scared. You know, you have other athletes that go really fast here, they're just gone. So it teaches you something as well about warm-ups. Michael Phelps had first land training warm-up, then had a first pool warm-up, then out, togs on, second warm-up, then marshalling area. 2 warm-ups. Where I've seen Ranomi Komajojo at maybe Ask Shako, very short, like 200, 300 meters, and then boom, gold medal in the 50 freestyle. So you have people that need like long warm-ups, people that need short warm-ups, but also, for example, the morning. The warm-up in the morning might have to be a little bit different from the afternoon. Might have to be a little bit longer in the morning because people need to like activate a little bit more. So things like that, where you have subsets, and for example, you write down your first set and you don't tell them about the second one. Then you tell them about the second one, and you don't tell them about the third one. Then you tell them like, look, they do good, great. One thing done. Second, good. I can actually do another one and see what they do. Then in Scottrell used to do quite a bit of that. 1050s max first set, and everyone's like, what is that? 1050s max. But then some people, okay, now you're done for the session, but other people the second one and then the third one. So you can actually learn quite a bit about your swimmers doing that subset. So, yeah. Any other observations there? Things to look at? The heart rate, this one?
I jumping out on it, I could talk about it, but I really like it, and I want to, just to your point, Tom, about the warm-up, I'd be setting the benchmarks of how fast I wanted to go to 20 and 25 in warm-up. So warm-up would be specifically trying to go as fast as you can at that rate, set your benchmark in the warm-up, let them be in a rested and protected state almost, so that they're not fearful of what's happening in the 25 and the 35 and the rest of the set. Put the warm-up up there, leave the rest out and say, okay, set your 9.3 or how fast you can go for your 25. Okay, now we're going to see who can repeat that. You're holding them to a level of account and then you're trying to get that again. There's a lot of power in being able to do that, whereas the people that do that the best seem to be able to get the best results at the first set, whereas people, it's a wishy-washy, 10 strokes explode or whatever. The specific detail you've got there, for me it needs to be replicated in the warm-up to a point and then held to account.
I have a question for you. So when you're doing that warm-up, for example, if you're doing some explosive stuff, are you looking for measuring specific stroke rate?
I'm looking for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, specific as I can get to that.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Well, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who number 2?
Okay, so this is like a mixed aerobic and anaerobic stimulus. Okay, so just taking one's working the heart rate more than anything else, and going 3 at 40 below. You obviously have to have a maximum heart rate to do this. So just 3 at 40 below. So they know their max heart rates and they just work off that. 2 at 30, 1 at 10 below, and then 2 at 40, 2 at 30, 2 at 10 below, 1 at 40, 2 at 30, 3 at 10 below, and we finish off. So obviously 10 below. Working to a VO2 max level there, and then finish off with 1450s with a bit of race pace. So we worked out like a male would have to go out in 51.0, back in 53.5, somewhere around there. So you'd be wanting at least 26.0 from his pace work. Okay, on his back end speed. Okay, so it's a bit of a mixed between starting off with very much aerobic, and then there's definitely an anaerobic component as you go through the set. Okay, and maybe early season you might even hold them at 3, 2, 1 just for the whole set, and then as they go through it, maybe when you repeat the set over the course of a few weeks, you might go a little bit more here and then hold them more in that zone. Okay.
Okay. So do you have it after the 18 ones? Do you have any recovery, or do you go straight into that set?
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's
aerobic.
Yeah, it's aerobic. You got 50 easy. Yeah, you got a minute.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah.
First one.
And possibly assess where the and this obviously there's a technical component of that where you want specific stroke counts.
So is that 26.0 without the turn?
Yeah. I mean, you'd be wanting him to come back in 26.5 in the race. So maybe a 7.0, 26.5. For his 50 straight
And
far.
faster than 26, yeah.
Yeah, so you would want 20.6.
What time are you?
Sorry?
What time are you?
On
What time are you here? When would you do that? When's that in the program?
in the time of the season.
Yes.
I think you should be able to, like, I would say you should be able to do that fairly early on, to be honest. It's only ever 4 back-to-backs, so off 60, I think you should be able to do that fairly early on, and you might keep them at 3, 2, 1 here all the way through on early season, and then maybe hold them in that VO2 max zone a bit longer as you go through the season. But I think guys should be able to get down to 1050s. It's not a huge volume of race pace, I don't think.
Right, any comments? I have a few again, but...
What time are the 50s on?
60, you could go them off. Depends on how well they're going. If they need more rest, I think it's flexible as well. Like if you feel like they're not looking all like great, you can put them on 70, no problem. If you want to but the speed's important. The speed's the most important thing, and how they're getting the speed as well with the counts and the stroke rate. So if they need more rest, then they'll go more rest, you know. But if maybe they could go, if you feel like they could go 50, well, they might be able to go 50 closer to the meet, you know.
Right. It hits the point, so I think it's a very good set. But what the explanation was before, like it's like high stress on both systems doesn't mean that this is like a high oxidative stress and this is a high glycolytic stress. This is also high glycolytic stress. Right? So that's what I meant. Like if you swim fast, even if it's aerobically, like if you swim very fast, it's also high stress on the glycolytic system, even those headwinds. 2 points. One is the beats below max. Swimmers just know that 40 beats below max is slower than, 30 beats below max is faster than 40, and 20 is faster, and 10 is, almost as fast as possible. But in the end, that's a prescription, and it's not a reality, I found, because of several factors. One is because we can't really measure it properly. There's definitely some big steps forward, but even so, you're not measuring the heart rates during, and especially swimmers can't see it, right? And what else? Also, like actually 40 beats below max, as a 40 beats below max, is different intensity for one athlete for another, even if it's below their individual max. So, but in the end, I think it works, because in the end, swimmers know they have to swim faster 30 beats below max, 20 beats below max, so it works. So, good, yeah. And this one, yeah, I think this one I would look at stroke rates especially, and yeah. That's a good one. I personally like the set. I'm sure people have any comments. Yeah. Right, good session. Thank you. Group number 3.
Which is what we're doing. You're one of the ones trying to get
So we had a 200 flyer looking at female looking at 204.5. So we basically started just working out what the end product race plan would look for, something like. It's about 28.5 front end easy speed, 32 0, 32 low, and then 31 home. That conditioning's right, we've got their easy speed well enough. The session we wrote 2. We're just the aerobic just the aerobic session. Yeah, so being aerobic, we wanted to make sure there was fly in there. Depending on the fly, I think flies probably, some flies do a lot more fly than others do in training, but we wanted to do contrast for to make sure that we weren't overloading the fly and detraining the technique and skill. Set 1, 2100s, so just 5 rounds of just 100 freestyle, 75 free, 25 fly, 50, 50, 25, 75, just moving through. We wanted to look at the counts and kicks in our swimming. Good chance if, especially early season, if we need to make some changes with the stroke, that's the time to do it. So if we want to add a kick underwater, this is where we want to start seeing that happen. In this more aerobic stuff, if we want to lengthen out the stroke, this is where we want to see it happen. So that's where kicks and counts, and feel and technique. So even then you'd work individually with your athlete if we felt they could do more, you might even look at doing a little bit more fly work if they could hold it together. Not so much stroke rates as yet, as long as they're more even stroke rates throughout, so they're not dropping rate down to 50. Second set is 6 bores, 150-50 and 75-25. Obviously, better if that is short course, you just get them to touch turn in and work that wall as well. Again, just transitioning so they're not overworking their fly and detraining the technique and skill, but while they are swimming the fly, they're really focused on lengthening out the stroke and working on the skill and technique there. And we just need to make sure that they're not working too hard and getting themselves up out of their aerobic zone. So just trying to keep it there. Moving through the season, we'll do it earlier, as I said, try and set the changes you want. At open level, you might back it off a little bit. Age group guys, you'd probably use that as their just aerobic work to flow through, feel their technique out and really work on honing on their skills. But yeah, you keep your stuff in there pretty much throughout, just bring it down as they start to drop off, as they see fit. If they're a bit flat, might go back to a little bit more of it and see if they can get a bit more going. But yeah, just trying to keep it pretty basic without, trying to stay in that area, not vary too much.
Any comments?
Did you see prescribed intensity?
Oh, just all middle aerobic, so yeah, that 40 below, 50 below.
So that heart rate checking, what's the cycle?
So that'll probably work off about 130, 140 cycle. Yeah, 130.
How much fly? Have you added the fly? How much did you actually do with fly?
So most of them end up being about half. This one just under.
So that's a kilometre?
This one's 25%.
How much is it fly?
Yeah, a bit less. Most, yeah.
You can change it around. So
Yeah.
put pins on as well.
Any comments? So aerobic stimulus, tick the box. Yeah. Right? Yeah, good.
Is that it?
And how long?
Especially in fly, I think there's different roads, right?
Yeah.
And there's I heard Don Talbot, like when he was in New Zealand for a while, and I just walked next to him, wrote everything down, and he said, for example, that fly, the rhythm was everything, and when you do a lot of aerobic fly, sometimes you don't see that good rhythm, you want to see that good rhythm. So he would be like a focus on good technique, good rhythm, always fast swimming. He didn't like the slow swimming because of that rhythm, and also because they're too low in the water and because they're just arching too much rather than going flat. But then you have a lot of very successful programs that do a lot of that work, so I guess it's like, yeah.
So,
different road.
So if we'd have gone an aerobic set that was freestyle,
yeah,
and
it's
not,
also
and not
aerobic
fly,
yeah.
you'd have gone, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. Like,
So-
because that was part of
Yeah.
our conversation. It was like
Yeah.
who's the fly swimmer, because you're going to create the harder stimulus with more fly anyway, but like come and technically.
It's got to be technically nice.
So
It's
why
not
not technically
technically
have
nice.
a short distance technique fly rhythm before that, and then go into just freestyle aerobic? So you can do that. So then you get your fly
Different
training
roads.
because you're around. So it's different rhythm.
But that's what we said. You can't, feel and technique, and you wouldn't prefer anything because it's just you can get it other ways. That's the most important. If it's not nice fly, don't do it.
If go with spike or fly.
Yeah.
Well, that's still a point that actually some coaches like don't really care about that. They're very successful about that too. So different roads. Yeah. Other comments? No. All right. Good job.
Thank
Hope you maintain your
Aha. 200 breaststroke, Vince. 200 breaststroke, 200
Alright, so we had a bit of an anaerobic aerobic set. This would probably be more during your quality phase of your season. Obviously you wouldn't want to do this too early on. So you go 5 on 2 minutes, 5 on 1:45, 5 on 1:30, 5 on 1:15, just dropping down. And the goal would be to hold 32.5
going for a 207 200 breast. Obviously, stroke counts and stroke rates are quite important, but like it's a tough set, and it's very unlikely that they'll maintain through the whole set. But you are sort of stressing towards the end of that oxidative phase is coming in a lot more. If you wanted to make it a bit more aerobic, you could slide in some recovery between the sets, but I think it's a fairly good mix. Yeah. Any questions? It's pretty simple.
For me, you want more speed at the start. You want a higher speed than 32.5 at the start, and at the end you want 32.5.
How did you get to 32.5?
I just looked up the splits for the World Championships, and the person who won was going 32. I think he went 29 or something, 31, 32, 32. And then Wilson also did like 29, 31, 32, 33. So I just sort of picked the middle ground a bit. Yeah. You could change that target time, obviously, depending on who you're looking at as well.
Well, if you want to go 32, you have to go faster at training. That's the first thing.
So we were right when we originally put up 30 to 31?
It's probably more like 32.0, 31 high.
Yeah.
For a 207 type swimmer.
Yeah.
I suspect it'd be difficult to go 20 in a row.
Yeah.
So, but then, wouldn't that suit if you just want to go 20 in a row? If you're talking about grooving the stroke, just purely pace-wise, so you're not actually going to go front end. So going, let them just swim at 32 and give them the rest to do it, and then the stressor is then just reduce capacity, you know, like of rest cycle. So you're not actually going, okay, how fast can you go and produce that? This is just going, okay, can you groove the stroke and work out 200 pace? So I don't reckon you can go 20 at 32, like even on those cycles.
Yeah,
so
well, yeah.
if you're just asking for like groove stroking, like just feel the tempo off the stroke, you can probably do that, but
What was the set for? What was
the anaerobic?
Anaerobic, high anaerobic.
What was it? The second one.
It was the second one.
So
aerobic and anaerobic.
Stressing both.
At the
Aerobic
same
and anaerobic.
time. You good?
Like I, if I was doing something like that, I would do 8.
8, yeah.
And then I would do it 3 rounds then.
But we were looking at something that stresses more anaerobic and aerobic at the same time. Not
I would do 8 100 easy, 8 100 easy, 8 100 easy.
Yeah. Fair.
And I'll be possibly looking. I'd be happy with 32.5. Not anything, not 33 or 34. But I'll be looking at 32.5 as probably being my upper limit rather than
you got
my.
2 minutes, man. 8 minutes. What do you do during the one?
So that's.
What would you do it on?
No?
What would you do it on?
I do. I'd be happy to do it on 60. I'm happy to do it all on 60.
That's it.
Zach Stubby-Cook does that on 65. Well, I just said.
That's a 200
a couple of dive 35. Look on, and then
Right, good, thank you.
Group 5.
All right.
Right, so we are group 5. We had to make a set that was same as the last group, very aerobic, stimulating both anaerobic and aerobic. Obviously we've got a pretty good distance swimmer of 800 and 1500, so we're probably working with quite a high-end athlete. And this is a group effort here. Oh, not a Bobby Oh, sorry. You're presenting. So we start with 601. So
as a group, we were deciding that we've probably got an athlete that we want to use their anaerobic stimulus to be able to change gears, but also keep the time cycle relatively short, where we would hopefully think we'd be touching in their aerobic system. So 16 ones, just descending 1 to 4, no really time specific, but just seeing how we can get through the first 16 ones on 115, plus 30 into 12 ones, descending 1 to 3 on 120, 30 seconds rest in the 8 ones at 1500 metre rate. Again, just seeing how far you can go while maintaining that constraint. 30 seconds easy into 850s, 800 rate on 40, straight into 850s, trying to be a little bit quicker to finish the set. So for us, we were trying to probably fatigue the aerobic state or stimulus at the start and then make it more anaerobic at the end. So this swimmer has the ability to change gears close to the end of their race.
Chris, what do you think?
So you said rate, you just were on rate, you're not getting a target time. Why is that?
So we discussed that we would like swimmers to probably not be constrained throughout a race off what they perceive the time is, but if they can maintain their rate with more length, we're going to get it probably a time that's quicker than they would perceive a certain time would be.
8 cycles and 15.
What's 15
So
metre pace?
time and rate
You're
are
not meant
obviously
to
more
use
important
your
when you get closer, yeah?
Yeah, but
time and rate.
what's-
If you're not in time shape, it's then try and get the rate right,
Yeah.
and eventually the time will come.
Yeah.
But obviously, if we're getting close to a meet, we're hoping we're getting the times
Okay.
there
And
with
it's
the right
rolling.
rate.
Question: what is 1500 metre pace for a swimmer for that swimmer? Pace.
61. 102 is 15:30, obviously.
102s. Well, 102s. 102s on what is it? 140? 150?
Where's that? For the
The
first 16?
H100s.
What, the 8 ones on?
And 1500.
That's 1500 metre rate.
Yeah.
Fine.
Fine.
120?
Fine, but in the end, it's not that hard, is it? Like in the end, it's like if you know top swimmers, like if you train for 1535 and you're pushing 62s on, it has to be like efforts like 6 out of 10.
Yeah. We were
So-
discussing time cycles where that would make a change or quite a drastic change throughout the set.
Yeah, so that's not very much a challenge.
Yeah.
I think
So
it's
you'd
good.
say you'd go 115, 115, 115, or would you go quicker?
Tom, would that change for you if it was going as fast as you can at 1500 rate?
Well, I think that's a very good focus of the session. But in the end, what was the focus of this session?
Aerobic and anaerobic.
Yeah, okay, so it kind of gets there, but it's not very challenging in that area. Like it's a very technical set, like going through that motion, but in 8 to 100s, you could actually repeat that set twice or even 3 times. Because that's a lot of rest. What is it, 150? Is that
120. No, 120.
Ah, sorry, I actually saw 150.
No, it's 150.
No, I saw 150.
Is that okay?
Take all that back.
Come on, Bob, you tough enough.
Yeah, no, on 110 and 110 fine.
You say Carl?
Sorry.
Yeah,
You got it?
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what swimmers say all the time. I'm trying to drop the cycles, but Bobby won't let us.
Yeah, I think that's
Realize
good.
on Sundays.
Do you feel like with that, we kind of wanted to go from more aerobic into an anaerobic stimulus? Would you agree with that? Or like we're wanting this athlete to be able to change gears.
Please.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Cool.
Are you next within the 100? You
No.
want to change gears?
We probably put that down as like a whole. That's just more with next split because it's descending 1 to 4. We did start at the start, whether it be 16 ones, maybe going 2 even split 2 next split, kind of bring that change in speed. But we feel like throughout the set, you've got a lot of changing gears over like 100 and 750 because we're talking more 800 to 100.
I still think it could be a little bit harder, but yeah. It is a good set.
Yeah.
You think, Janelle? Do you?
I think the 850s you could change the pace better. To go 8-4, 8-4.
Right. Yeah, good. Cool. Sweet. Thank you.
Smoked it.
I'm probably the least experienced swim coach in the room. I don't coach any swimming at all, but had a good time planning this session with the guys over there. It's for a female 400 IM swimmer, aiming to swim 4:30. And similar to the last two groups, it's a session that's trying to target both aerobic and an anaerobic stimulus as well. Pretty straightforward session, but we just tried to plan it around hitting both those energy systems. So the main sets of the session is 4x50 metres on 3 minutes at 200 pace. There's a 5-minute active recovery or swim down. That's also followed by a 5-minute passive rest as well. I'll go through that in a second. Set number 2 is 400s on 2 minutes at 400 pace. Similar active and passive recovery as well. And then the third set is 2 200-metre efforts on 3 minutes at 800 pace. The main reason that we split that session up into 3 different sets is, as you saw from what Tom did on the board before, the first couple of repetitions in each set has more of a, or stimulates anaerobic metabolism also. And if you've got all the subsequent repetitions after that, you get greater energy production from aerobic metabolism. So the reason that we've split that up is that so the first couple of reps from each of the subsequent sets can more so target the anaerobic metabolism at the start of each one of those sets. The reason we've got both an active and passive recovery between each one of the sets is that the active swim down can provide further aerobic stimulus. But then we also want to incorporate a passive recovery in between each set, just so those first couple of reps obviously have more of an anaerobic focus. A couple of other things that you can do contextually, you could monitor heart rate or lactate at the end of the passive recovery, just to ensure that each swimmer is going into each one of the subsequent sets and their sort of metabolism has gotten back down much lower, so you've got more of an anaerobic focus on the first couple of repetitions.
What stroke is it? Is it all?
Yeah, it's another thing we didn't really discuss, but I guess given that it's an IM swimmer, maybe you might do each one of the reps with each one of the strokes. Not sure, what do you guys think?
Is it all 450s on 3 minutes?
Yeah, so each one on 3 minutes. I guess the other thing you can look at is the intensity they're swimming at. So with the figure that Tom showed before, if you look at a 50-metre all-out swim, it's very largely anaerobic, but that's under the premise that you're performing that effort maximally. So if you are only doing a 50-metre effort at 200 pace, that would probably have more of a aerobic contribution than the figure that Tom showed before. So what you could do with this first set is maybe increase the recovery, but then also increase the intensity so that you can further target anaerobic metabolism on the first couple of reps.
Do you think that's long enough to form the baby swim?
Yeah, it's a good point. I guess you're probably getting a little bit more volume in on the back end of those sets, but yeah, I guess that could be one other thing you could look at. Maybe these could be 4x100 efforts, and then you could manipulate the volume on the subsequent sets if that wasn't going to provide enough of a volume overload.
Do it 3 times through.
Yeah.
Sorry, what did you say?
Three times.
Just saying, it's a great job by a track coach. He doesn't do swimming at all. This is like a track coach.
You could change the 50, I think 3 minutes is too much for the 200 pace. I reckon you could change that to 130.
Yeah, so yeah, either
So it brings in the more aerobic into it. Even more.
Yeah, I guess the premise behind the longer recovery was just to try and get a bit more recovery in between the reps, so you could sort of target the anaerobic system a little bit more so. But
could you go the whole 450s flat? And then maybe switch on the 4-1?
Yeah, I guess you could, yeah.
I think it's trying, what the group was trying to say is then, so the 450, just 200 pace was a marker, but what they're saying is probably that'd be max, so it's actually pure anaerobic then, that's why the 3 minutes. So let's see if we can generate as much speed as you can, and then have the active and passive rest, and then it's more specific than in the 4-1, so that's really then it's your 400 pace stuff. So it's like really going pure anaerobic first, that's why it's the 3 minutes. Whether you do 450s or broken, doesn't matter, you know, like one of each stroke, that's was the conversation. So instead of going aerobic into anaerobic, go pure anaerobic first while they're fresh, and then going into that more pace and anaerobic stuff.
Yeah, because I think if you're saving the speed sets to the end of the session, they probably become more aerobic anyway, so you probably want to front end the session with your more speed anaerobic sets. That was the thinking anyway.
Good, very good. Good track line.
Then, yeah, because we have two physiologists working with like top athletes, not a sport. So Eric is working with top cyclists, and Nick is working with top canoe. So I asked them to present a workout as well that they do with their athletes and some observations. So Eric or Nick?
I work with both road cycling and BMX, so it kind of exists on the two ends of the spectrum in terms of energy demands. So I'll present one from each. The road one is targeting more of a aerobic and anaerobic component. So I guess we differ quite heavily to you guys in the various metrics that we use to prescribe. So we would prescribe around duration, so like a 5-minute effort as opposed to a distance-based prescription. And we're also quite lucky in that we can measure mechanical work that's performed. So we have power meters on the bike. They capture the force and the cadence and power, so the mechanical work done. So I typically prescribe based off power. So for my road cyclist, I'm doing a series of 5-minute efforts.
Are they on a fixed bike?
No, so this will be on the road. So they've got gears, boring track cycling, which just goes round and round in circles. So,
What distance are they?
Yeah, good question. So road cyclists are racing over females 4 to 4.5 hours, men 6 to 7 hours for benchmark events. So obviously big aerobic capacity, they do a lot of volume, like the swimmers do, it sounds like. But when a hammer goes down, it's obviously got very different energy demands. They also have to respond to what other cyclists are doing. They have to respond to changes in weather, in terrain. So when they're climbing, they may have to go a little bit harder. So dipping into different energy systems throughout, rather than being a steady state or a set pace throughout. So it's much more stochastic. So this particular set is particularly targeting that stochastic nature of what would otherwise be on average more of a threshold type effort. So we've got a bit of a progression, so it'd be 5-minute efforts on a 1-to-1 work rest recovery ratio, and it would basically sequence through it'd be 40 seconds or 45 seconds at 95% of threshold power, and then 15 seconds at about 120% of threshold power. That'd be close to VO2 max. Okay, and they'd repeat that 5 times and have 5 minutes easy pedaling, and then repeat again. So that's sort of stressing that ability to dip above threshold, come back down. So lactate tolerance was one of the words kicked around.
So they're working on their what on top of the meters. They're working on they're watching the meters on the bottom.
Correct. Yeah. So they got the
it's
direct,
really specific,
direct feedback. So we can go with a little bit higher fidelity in terms of the subtle changes in the work ratios. So that might start sort of early on in sort of pre-com, so starting to get a little bit more specific, and then you could progress that simply by changing the amount of time spent in each of those areas, and as they get fitter, the actual power at those zones should come up. So I could go 30, and then when we're getting closer to competition, I may actually do flip it around the other way where you're doing 15 under. So these are over-under sets, I'd call these, and 45 over. So you're really close to VO2 max for a 5-minute period, and you repeat that again and again. So about 3 reps with 1 to 1.
And there's a reason 5 minutes, or it's just you're talking total?
Typically, if there's a key climb,
so
that would sort of be the amount of work that needs to be done for that period. If it's a time trial, they're sitting at threshold throughout, but there may be key periods where they're responding to slight bumps. So it's about the amount of time that you can stress before it starts to fall away. They wouldn't even be able to hold threshold.
Do you have set cadences or not? Set cadence?
It depends a little bit. So if it was a time trial athlete, I'd be trying to have them around race pace cadence, which would be sort of 95 RPM. But it's going to be very individual, what's most economical for them. If it's an athlete that is getting ready for, like if climbing is a weakness, so they're quite good at a steady state climb, but when riders start jostling for position and things become a bit more dynamic, that's when they get pops. Then I'd probably get them doing it on lower cadence, or actually just get them to do it on the climb. And you could even go out with a motorbike and play with them a little bit.
Are they sort of slipstreaming with each other, or are they apart, flat?
In racing, certainly slipstream.
No, yeah.
In this, I'd probably do this on the ergo because I can control it really nicely. So I just put their bike on a trainer and make it highly prescriptive. Unless it was on a climb, it's pretty easy to do the same.
Any difference male and female in the prescription side of things?
Not in terms of percentages, but the actual workloads, of course. Yep. For the guys, if it was a time trial athlete, I might build up the total amount. Like I might build up the 5-minute block to being longer blocks than I would for the females, just because the competitions are longer.
How do you calculate a threshold pace?
It's a great question. So we're lucky they rack their bikes, their Garmin head units typically pick up all that information and send it to our online athlete monitoring platform called Training Peaks in most cases. So we're getting all their training data coming in. I prefer that we get a lot of good data from training, and then that becomes a surrogate for having to do a lot of formal testing. I like formal testing when there's a specific question to be answered, but otherwise I like for training to take place of that. So I've got all this power data coming in for different durations, and one thing that you do is you get what's called a power profile. So you have power and time, and sort of this curvilinear relationship that you get across time. So as long as you've done reasonably maximal efforts across a series of durations, you can typically model out to what you expect that they can hold for a 5-minute effort, or a 60-minute effort, which for a guy would be very close to their threshold power. And then you typically prescribe based off of that. Any other questions on that one? For my BMX one, I'll just speak to it. Again, I would do this particular set on an ergo. So BMX athletes are racing for about 30 to 45 seconds, depending on the length of the track, highly dependent on how they get out of the gate. It's about a 3-second effort. A lot of pumping, not that much pedaling, just little 3-second bursts out of the turns. So one set that we would often do is 6 slots of 3-second sprints on 30 seconds. Okay, so 6 slots of 3-second sprints, very, very short. Doesn't sound like a lot, but because they're so anaerobic, they can go quite deep. And after that 2.5 minutes, they need a good 10-15 minutes rest, like complete rest, before they go again. We do 3 sets of those.
What power are you looking for the generator?
So that's the other easy thing about BMX, is everything's maximum.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's the difference between male and female?
Depends a bit on size. For females, we see anything from the elite level around 1,000 to 1,500 watts. But we probably see a little bit more variation in the size as well. Sort of anything from low 60 kilos up to mid 70s, whereas the guys it's a little bit more homogeneous, around that 85 to 90 kilo mark. And you see if they can get the whole set above 2,000 watts, then they're kicking goals. So we look at, so we sort of look at that drop off. So it's almost more of a power endurance type set. For them, it is tapping into their aerobic capacity, and it is considered a bit more of a conditioning set, at least the conditioning that they need for their short duration event. So I'm sort of looking at, yes, their peak powers, are they able to maintain the cadences and the fatigability of those efforts.
Isn't there a correlation between like their start time is like going to be whoever wins, or is it first time? Isn't there like it's a really high component, isn't it? Like
if you're top three at the bottom of the hill, then chances are you'll be in the top three at the end. But whether that's correct or not, that is the depth of talent in terms of getting out of the gate has improved a lot. So the rest of the track matters a bit more now.
Do you ever measure like the distance that you travel within that, say, 2,000 output as well? So you get
so that would go more to some of the stuff that we do on the road with the BMX guys. So we would do that, and that's where it probably becomes a bit more like you guys. We prescribe over a set distance. So they do 20-minute, 20-meter sprints, and we would vary. So the other thing I should say is with these, or whether it's on the road, we'll vary the gearing, or whether it's uphill, flat, or downhill. So in the general prep phase, it's more of a strength focus. We'd have big gears, uphill, fan 10 for the ergo set I mentioned, so higher resistance. And then as we get closer towards competition or specific prep, we may do more of a power, speed, strength, power type effort. So we go closer to race gear on the flat, which is still more resistance than what they have on the ramp. The reason for 20 metres is it's very similar to the distance of the ramp, so they get the same number of cranks, and about 6 cranks. And again, it's around about a 2 to 3 second effort depending on the gearing, which is similar to the little efforts that they get out of each antenna.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. I suppose the first one, Tom just asked for some observations earlier, and probably my biggest observation was when I first sat in with in group 2. I was kind of like, oh, you guys are speaking Russian. It's interesting that the terminology and language everyone uses is very, very different, but at the same time, when you start deciphering it all, we actually do talk the same language as well. So I work with sprint kayaks. So typically, for those who don't know, we've obviously got individual paddlers. But the real unique thing with our sport is you also have team boats, so K2, K4, but I just talk about the, I suppose, K1s at the moment. Just as a quick background, so women generally race over 500 metres, and around about that 150 in a K1 is what we're looking at time-wise. And men race K1000 metres, which around that 330 as well. So unlike kind of swimming, we've certainly got, the two genders are very kind of different in those areas. Few crossovers, but at the same time, the bread and butter is those two events there. So I'll just talk about probably one of those kind of anaerobic, heavy aerobic sets, and then I'll talk about one of the race-specific sets. So unlike you guys, we don't have a closed environment. So kayaking is pretty much, particularly on the Gold Coast where it's tidal, we can be doing a world record in one direction, and then the next thing, the effort's actually 20 seconds slower. So we've got that issue to start with. We don't have power either, so again, that's another issue there. So, and then also in terms of don't have void calls, so quite often we've got to like pontoon to pontoon might be a certain distance, or we go by time. So certainly for us, it kind of can be a bit of a cluster some days when you start an effort and like, holy shit, what just happened there? So, so I suppose again, it comes back to for us, that's why we do a lot by stroke rates, and again, it's really interesting hearing about that one in particular. So for us, stroke rate's all about developing efficiency. So for us, it comes down to your bread and butter is efficiency at the end of the day. So, and particularly again, we always talk about you don't have one stroke rate for a certain person, another for a certain person, because at the end of the day, you're all going to sit in team boats. So what we generally find is certain stroke rates you fit in the aerobic zone, anaerobic, and obviously race pace kind of stroke rates. So it's a really fascinating one, and particularly what we work on as well is with those stroke rates. It's theoretically, if everyone's same fitness, paddling well, all the boat velocities should be going at obviously same velocity, same stroke rate. As you guys know, that's not an ideal world. So one of the sets we work on again is with the women is 8/500s, and again, a real point of difference which I've noticed with you guys. Our kite coaches really particularly believe going over race distance is a big bread and butter. So our key sets each week is for the women 8/500s and for the men 10/1000s. They really believe going over race distance is a big one, and we actually set stroke rates. So again, for us, 85 to 90 stroke rate is threshold, around that threshold, obviously give or take. So basically these sets are done at threshold. So women will do 8/500s on 2 minutes. So it's basically roughly about 2 minutes on a 7-minute base. So pretty much we're doing 2 minutes of work with 5 minutes of just easy paddling around. What we also do with that set is efforts 3 and 7 are max. When we say max, obviously it's not race pace max, it's basically emptying the tank in effort 3. And the crux of the set is basically efforts 4 and 8. You've got to get back to threshold after doing a max effort. So for us, again, it's really being able to keep the consistency through the set. We also, again, those max efforts, we certainly look at the time. Obviously, the fitter they get, the faster they go over their max effort. And again, it's all about developing the efficiency at those stroke rates. So what we find in particular, if an athlete's getting more fatigued, they'll bring the stroke rate up to try and keep the velocity. So it's trying to bring that athlete down. Same with the men. So the 10/1000s would be roughly a 4 minutes for a 1,000-meter pace. Off a 7-minute base as well, so a bit less rest. And again, efforts 4 and 8 are max for these guys. So again, I suppose we call this a bread and butter for sets for this. And again, big believer is going over race distance for that one. And certainly, again, what we tend to find is as you go closer towards racing, the set does modify a bit, but certainly those max efforts come down in terms of similar stroke rates, but obviously certainly getting those faster times there. Is there any questions on that one?
When you spoke about rate and having all your paddlers go similar rates, do you ever take a paddler and just forget the team environment to muck around with their tempo and even though it might not be out of the range of where you want them for a team race?
Yep, so
you muck around
certainly.
outside those boundaries?
Yep, and certainly we're doing that at the moment. We've got with say the women's squad at the moment, we've actually got 6 national team members there. They're all actually on an individual program at the moment, so they might be doing the same session, or say a similar session. So they might say have 10 kilometres, but if an athlete needs to work on technique, we really bring their stroke rate down for that session and let the others go, and vice versa. And what we also do as well is if with the stroke rates, so say you two are a lot faster than you two, or fitter, or whatever terminology. Whatever terminology. Rather than trying to put you.
I'll give you a race to
rather than trying to get you all. But rather than trying, so again, if we're looking, say, we'll just talk about an aerobic session. So say we're looking at roughly about that 70 stroke rate. You two might be fitter than these 2 examples over here. So rather than, obviously, again, we're talking about efficiency here. So we'd send you two off as a group, and you two would go the other way as well. Because otherwise, what will happen? Very typical. You guys will pick up your stroke rate because you'll start falling behind. So again, it certainly comes back to technical at the end of the day. That's no different to you guys there.
So obviously at the start you're going to have a higher stroke rate. So how much higher a stroke rate are they above their threshold or their race pace stuff? And then how many meters do they hold that for? So like a start, is that 100 meters? What's the start?
Well, that's actually going to be.
And when do they drop into their rate?
So that's actually going to be my race specific one, but you kind of talked into that one. So a lot of our sets, so aerobically will sit around 70. Obviously we play around the stroke rates. A lot of threshold seems to be around that 90. Our race pace in K1s is roughly around that 110 stroke rate. In a K4 it would be 120, 115, 120. So again, you've got a lot of variation with regards to what both.
And when you say rates, that's cycle per minute, is that what you're saying? You're the same class?
Yeah. But yeah, pretty much the same there. So yeah, so certainly then we do our race specific sets would be, so for the women, obviously race over 500, you do 250 on, 250 off, 250 on. The first 250 would be what we call a start transition. So again, you're all about standing start, getting the rate up to usually about that 135, 140. And then usually around that, we say like a 20 doubles, might be say around that 60, 70 metres, start transitioning the boat down into your race pace. Varies depending on athletes as well, because certain athletes can't stroke the boat that high, so they tend to sit a bit earlier with their stroke rates. 250 off, and then sorry, once they've transitioned, then it's holding that race pace with around that 110 stroke rate. 250 off is just basically tapping away, nothing, again, what you guys would call a swim back. And then our last 250, we actually normally set a stroke rate as well. So rather than trying to do a race pace of 110, we might set a 105. So it just takes the edge off again to try and bring the boat up. We'd look at then doing 2 of those efforts on probably about a 10-15 minute base as well. So again, very different in terms of we have a lot more recovery between efforts. And then we might go in and do, end of the set would be maybe 2 250s. We wouldn't put a standing start in the 2 250s at the end of the set. It would just be rolling at race pace. And again, race pace, we talk about stroke rate there. So, and certainly for what we find with our guys, I don't know if it's the same with you, there's only so many starts you can do per session because yeah, energy cost there.
What sort of lactates do kayakers get being that they're not using
so in some of our, so some of the sets we do, so you talk about the anaerobic glycolytic sets, we can actually get them up, it's 20, 24. And so one of those sets would be like a 3 times 250, so 250, say for the women, is around 55 seconds. That would be off a 3-minute base. You do 3 of them, have 5 minutes recovery, repeat the set, 5 minutes recovery, repeat again, and that usually certainly can drive the lactate up there. In racing, again, because the race is so short, we'll only see about 10, 12 lactate in that one. But certainly for us, we spend a lot of time in that kind of anaerobic space. That's 12 weeks out from worlds or competition, I should say.
What about long aerobic?
Long aerobic, so that's our bread and butter as well, because again, looking at the energy contributions, I actually wrote it down. So 500 metres for us, from an energy contribution, is very similar to your 200 metre race. And our 1,000 is very similar to your 400. So actually, again, we call it sprint kayak, but it's not really sprint at the end of the day. It's quite a high aerobic contribution. So for instance, at the moment, big weeks would be 160k for the men, 100 for the women. But when we talk about it, yeah, when we talk about a individual session, so at the moment, an aerobic session for the women would be a total of 20k, and that's broken up. Again, it's probably talking your language a bit here, where we have like a 6-minute, 5-minute, 4-minute effort, and then you increase the stroke rate slightly, so 65, 70, 75. And then the last, say, 10k might be called what we call wash leads. So you have a V formation. The first person would be doing heavy aerobic, the 2 sat on the wash would be doing light aerobic, and then every 4 minutes you change around. And the men will generally go up to about 25, 27k during their aerobic session, and they normally do longer intervals, so they might do a lot of 8-minuters, and again we'll do wash leads back home as well. So yeah, so it's certainly, and probably the other thing I've learned as well, very similar to you guys, is certainly on Monday, that's usually when we always start with an aerobic session, just to get the feel back. I think
1 days or 2 days in the water?
2 times a day on the water, yep, and 3 times in the gym a week. And then we would try and break the week up as well. They do gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or at the moment they're in 4 gyms a week, because obviously for us it's a certainly strength power sport. And then usually you have your key sessions depending on the week, but the women will have a sprint session on a Monday afternoon. But the key sessions are usually Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday mornings, and usually afternoons are more that kind of float.
In regards to, you've got different size athletes, you know, you have Alyssa and Elise, you know, and then you bring Brianna and she's down here. How do you control the shorter ones that want to possibly rate up compared to say a lease that's quite long?
Okay, so that again comes back to certainly techniques, and that's a great example with Elisa. Elise loves to probably overrate, and Elisa certainly underrates, and you've got those two in a K2 together, which is a good, fascinating combination. It comes back to again with that stroke length, and we do a lot of skills and drills in the boat with certainly getting the stroke length and pausing, and doing it's almost like track and field to some extent. So part of the warm up would be skills and drills. But certainly, again, it comes back to, at the end of the day, someone's got to take charge in that team boat. So the first person, what we call is a metronome, so they're the one that sets up the stroke rates. And the other, it's all about adjusting to each other, but at the end of the day, if one wants to push the boat, you get out of time, but it's all about working together with the front seat paddler setting the rate.
And then obviously you mix around who goes in the lead and who works better, I suppose, the combination.
Yes, so certainly you've got, this is again a very hard thing to explain, but because I'm not a kayaker, so it's taken me years to appreciate. You've certainly got natural fits in certain seats as well. So typically the front seat paddler is more a sprinter, usually, historically, and they're the ones who's got really good feel for the water, who can basically what we call set the boat up. What's fascinating at the moment is in our women's boats, we've actually got a real aerobic person sitting in the front seat because they are the more natural paddler, which is fascinating. So typically the team boat historically was always been you put the sprinters in the front of the boat, 2 sprinters at the front, and then the aerobic beasts in the back, and the aim, this is terminology, it's not true, but this is terminology. The front 2 pull the boat out, get the boat moving, the back 2 bring it home. But we've certainly played around with that at the moment, and right now we've probably got our seats 1 and 3 would be our most aerobic athletes. And sometimes you just go by what actually works rather than the physiology to some extent.
Right, thank you very much. I'm not going to keep you much longer. I know everyone is gotten up very early. Maybe a few points. I'll just go through some slides. I had wanted to go through some snapshots of Olympic medalists, but maybe that's for another time. Maybe I'll take the extremes 50 meter and open water. So this is a presentation from Romain Barnier, but maybe Brant's, yours would have been with James, I don't know. So a lot of weight training, well, actually a lot of land training, so everyday land training. Monodue, massive guy, very big guy, a lot of speed, hypoxic work. So he actually has a really nice predation model. Whether that happens in reality, I don't know. But I have good information on that, like what we did from September to December, then December to March when the trials were, and then March to the. So I can actually share that if people wanted to. It's in French, but it's understandable. Sorry. And I'll go to the open water because I liked what related to what Eric was saying. So this is from a snapshot from Philippe Lucas in France, and a lot of change of pace, and actually change, like almost every session is almost max, but in the end the intensity is regulated by the distance of the repetitions. So for example, Monday morning 100 meter intervals as best average. Then on the Monday afternoon, 1,000 meter efforts, intervals, but in the end, like 1,000 meter max is not, like that's how you actually change that intensity. And you have 300s, you have 50s, you have anything, just changing that. So I have some actual sets as well of his, if you wanted to. If you
Sorry, who was that?
Philippe Lucas from France. Yeah. Bit of a different coach. Sorry?
Is he Marseille or Montpellier?
Marseille, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where he's at. I was looking for a picture before. Like as coaches, you always want to give it time, right? You always want to give it time, and the athletes only have a very short time to actually. Oh, what's that time? So they very often see like people like that. Well, what's my time? Because I'm not going to hear it anymore. Maybe like just wait a moment before saying the time so they can actually finish properly. Otherwise, it becomes a bad habit in races. No, I'll just skip that. Periodization. I think of that all the time, long-term plans and short-term goals. People don't want to look like next year or 2 years further, but they want to have short-term goals. And then short-term goals really help generally if athletes like, if that's my goal in 3 weeks' time, generally you can motivate them a bit better rather than, next year we want to do this. So the way I generally look at it, but it might be very different across other coaches, but I generally look at it, okay, you have the main championships in July, August, and then you have a pre-season. So that's where you want to fix things that aren't good, you know, like skill. If body composition actually isn't that good, that's the time to change it. Not from January onwards, because that's a bit late. And then you have a mid-season from January to around April, and then I call it the final prep and championship season later. And for example, Aerobic Capacity, that pre-season now is actually not doing that much, like 3 to 4 kilometer sessions, but more in the gym. Right? So that's the thing. Like if you do a lot in the water, then maybe a little bit less in the gym. But if you don't do that much in the water, you can do more in the gym. Yeah. So different roads to Rome. And then that mid-season is more where we have hybrid sessions, so that stimulating of that both systems. And then very specific work at the end. This is an example of visualization from Lauren Boyle going to the Olympics, but that changed over, so maybe I should have showed the other years as well, because the next year she actually really stepped up. The volumes don't show because of the projector, but I think that's 60 and that's 80. So altitude training camps really use that when you go away on camps, and then you have those really big train loads because they just eat, sleep, recover, and swim a lot. Yeah, and also a good periodization. Like sometimes a flat periodization doesn't work that well. So yeah, generally a periodization actually works. Maybe a quick quiz to finish off then. What set can a heart rate be a valuable monitoring tool?
Yellow.
Yeah, the yellow? Right, good. Yeah. Lactate, we already talked about it. Feeling the burn. What statement is correct? Yeah, the blue one, so here coach, especially athletes, the lactic acid, but then again, in physiological terms, it's an easy one to use, but it's not a proper one to use. Right. And then what else? Yeah, the last two slides, one on warm-ups and one on recovery. Chat on warm-ups, so that's the thing, like people can actually be quite different in what they need to warm up. And when you go to an international competition, your pool warm-up actually finishes 40 minutes before your event. 40 minutes, it's a long time, isn't it? It's 20 minutes marshalling, and then 5 minutes moving to your starting block. So in the end, like, we don't do that often at training. To actually, what do you do in that 40 minutes to actually keep warm? What do you think needs to be done when the swimmer stands on the block and ready to go? What needs to be warmed up? Core temperature, okay. Anything else? Heart rate? Well, when it's Olympic Games, I can tell you, I don't think there will be many athletes with heart rate 90 standing on the block. So that will happen by itself, yeah. But warm muscles and keep yourself warm. You know, like when you look at many champions, they actually, even Michael Phelps or Peter Van der Wall, yeah. So when the blood is already there in your hands and your feet, it doesn't have to get there. It's actually already there, right? Especially explosive work. And when it's a very cold environment, gloves on, beanie on, hat on. When it's a warm environment, you might not need that. You know, but when it's a cold environment, you need to dress up for heat jackets. It's not that you always have to have heat jackets, right? But if it's cold, you need a heat jacket. If it's not cold, you don't. So just common sense. And then the last thing, what is the meaning of recovery to you? There's a lot of discussions around recovery. What does recovery actually mean? Lactate has to be under 2, for example, or what does that mean?
Getting the body ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So when a swimmer finishes a race, right, and the event is the next day, what is recovery? Like, what do they need to make sure at the end of that race?
They start it straight away as soon as possible. They give them their recovery protocol.
Yeah, what's the recovery protocol?
Well, they have to eat.
Food,
They have to
swim
drink.
down.
Yeah, so they need some food.
Treatment.
Yeah, they need some food. Yeah. And I think sometimes as well, like when you have an athlete, they come to you, oh, I missed up my turn, I missed up my start. They'll be thinking about it when they go home. Like maybe in the warm down, and that's the moment to actually fix it. So things like that, mental recovery is part of it as well. So work on that turn. Okay, you did a good turn, job done, and take them home. Right, mental thing is really important. Lactates, you know, they'll come down by itself. Right, you need that active recovery. But if you do like a, for example, you have like a 600 meter warm down, they come and take a lactate, which sometimes happen. Lactate is swim 400 meters more. There's 1,000 meters. Lactate is still 3. Swim more, and then you can have someone swimming 2 kilometers and warm down to get underneath 2, for example. But that's a workout. The 2 kilometers, it's not a recovery anymore. Right? So the lactate isn't really a big thing for recovery. It's exactly what Janelle was saying. It's being ready again for the next one, whatever that is. If that's half an hour later, if that's 5 minutes later, if that's 30 seconds later, or if it's the next day. But generally, yeah, get some food in, swim down a bit, go home, legs up, and relax. That's it. I think that's it. Right, all go home. Yes.